Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 656, A Walk in the Park, Homophones 10, Upper Beginner. My dear friend, Peter, was the deviser of our weekend hike. He was a good man, but sometimes his plans needed a little help. For the last few days, I had been in a daze, worrying about the weather. I'd even begun to dissent from his original route. I don't think we should go, I said, a rare note of protest in my voice. The river current is strong, and there's a damn big dam at the end of that path. It doesn't look safe. Peter smiled, a little too calmly. Don't be a damn pessimist. The route is fine. Look, I've brought you a currant bun to cheer you up. I took a bite of the bun and agreed to go. As we walked, a beautiful deer crossed our path, a good omen. We reached a fork in the path, and Peter hesitated. He was looking at a symbol on his map that marked a steep descent. The path wound sharply down to the river. It's a long way down, I said. And I don't want to get stuck. I'd rather not desert the path, but this doesn't feel right. Peter's face was a study in concentration. He was trying to figure out which path to take. The symbol was not a symbol from a drum kit, of course, but a map symbol he couldn't quite understand. He needed a cue. Try to divide the path into smaller parts, I suggested, thinking of a maths lesson from school. The divisor in this case is the number of trees. There's a queue of people behind us. Peter looked up, a little frustrated. Queue is a martial arts ranking, he said. Not a way to divide a path. I'd messed that up. Suddenly, a park ranger appeared. She gave Peter a clear cue to follow her. We stepped off the curb of the path and followed her to a beautiful viewpoint. From there, we could see a wide, safe path that bypassed the dangerous descent. I am sorry, I was just in a daze for a few days, Peter admitted. It's okay, I said. We'll have our dessert now and forget all about it. Vocabulary notes. Pessimist. A pessimist is a person who always expects bad things to happen. Example, don't be a damn pessimist. Peter said. Similar words, complainer, worrier, negative person. Opposite, an optimist, a person who always expects good things to happen. Omen. An omen is a sign that something is going to happen in the future, either good or bad. Example, as we walked, a beautiful deer crossed our path, a good omen. Similar words, sign, signal, warning, indication. Concentration. Concentration is the ability to think carefully about something for a period of time. Example, Peter's face was a study in concentration. Similar words, focus, attention, thoughtfulness. Frustrated. To feel frustrated is to feel annoyed or angry because you are unable to do something you want to do. Example, Peter looked up, a little frustrated. Similar words, annoyed, irritated, disappointed. Bypassed. To bypass something means to go around it instead of through it or over it. Example, we followed her to a beautiful viewpoint. We could see a wide, safe path that bypassed the dangerous descent. Similar words, go around, avoid, circumnavigate. Story written by Gemini AI. Image created by Gemini AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you.
All right, let's dive into something that trips up just about everyone learning English. And hey, even native speakers sometimes. We're talking about those tricky words that sound exactly the same but mean totally different things. Today, we are going to solve this puzzle. Right? Is it D-E-A-R, like a friend, or D-E-E-R, like the animal? Are you talking about the flow of a river or a tiny little fruit in your scone? You know, it's one of the most common hurdles in English. But once you kind of get the hang of it, it's actually fascinating. So, what's the official name for these words? They're called homophones, and it's pretty straightforward if you break it down. It comes from Greek homo, which means same, and phone, which means sound. So literally, same sound. Same sound, but, and this is the important part, different meanings. Okay, so theory is one thing, but let's see how this all works in practice. We're going to use this great little story called A Walk in the Park as our case study. And trust me, it is jam-packed with these homophones. The setup is super simple. We've got two buddies, Peter and our narrator, and they're out on a hike. But things get a little confusing thanks to our friends, the homophones. So think of us as detectives. We're going to follow along and spot every single word that tries to trip them up. You ready? Let's do it. And here's our first one. Our narrator is starting to get a little nervous about his friend Peter's plan. He says he's begun to dissent. All that means is he's starting to disagree. He's not so sure about this path they're on. And boom, here's the mix-up. The reason he starts to that's D-I-S-S-E-N-T, to disagree, is because he sees that the path ahead is a steep descent, D-S-C-E-N-T, a really sharp downward slope. See? Same sound, but one is an opinion in his head and the other is a physical path they have to walk down. Okay, next up, our narrator spots another problem. He's looking at the river and he's worried about the current. You can just picture it, right? He sees the water moving really fast, really powerfully. And this is just a perfect example of how different these words can be. So to calm his friend down about the dangerous river current, Peter offers him a currant bun. One is this powerful force of nature, and the other is a sweet little snack. You definitely do not want to mix those two up. Ah, here's the classic one. I bet you've seen this one before. The story introduces Peter as the narrator's dear friend. It's a term of endearment, you know. It shows us he really cares about him. Now this is where context is absolutely everything. My dear friend, D-E-A-R, is a person you cherish. But then later on their hike, they spot a deer, D-E-E-R, the animal crossing the path. The sound is identical, but the situation, the context, tells you exactly which one they're talking about. Okay, so as our hikers get a little more lost, the narrator's getting pretty antsy. He says he doesn't want to desert the path, which just means abandon it or leave it, but he's got this bad feeling. Something just feels wrong. Now, you really got to pay attention to the spelling on this one. D-E-S-E-R-T with just one S means to leave. But at the end of their adventure, they decide to get D-E-S-S-E-R-T with two S's. You know, the yummy, sweet course after a meal. That one little extra S makes all the difference in the world. Okay, brace yourselves for a real challenge. This story throws a three-way homophone at us. So Peter needs a cue, which is like a hint. The narrator sees a cue, a line of people, and then Peter totally mishears and thinks of KU, a rank in martial arts. Let's break this triple puzzle down real quick. So CUE is a signal, QUEUE is a line of people, and KYU is that martial arts rank. We've got three totally different words, three totally different spellings, but they all sound exactly the same. Wild, right? So we've talked a lot about the homophones, but what about the words around them? Those are the clues that help us figure everything out. So let's look at a few other key words from the story that really help build that context and paint the full picture for us. First up, pessimist. When our narrator is all worried about the steep path and the fast river, Peter calls him a pessimist. That's just someone who always expects the worst-case scenario. This one word tells us a lot about the narrator's personality, right? He's the cautious one. Hey, remember that deer they saw, the animal one? Well, the narrator sees it as a good omen. An omen is basically a sign of things to come. This tells us he's looking for a little bit of hope, you know? A sign that things are going to turn out okay. So as Peter's staring at this map, trying to figure out where they are, The story says his face was a study in concentration. You can just picture it. He's blocking everything else out, putting all his brain power into solving this one problem. It really builds the tension. And you know what happens when all that intense concentration doesn't get you anywhere? Yup, you get frustrated. We've all been there, right? That feeling of being so annoyed because you're just stuck. This shows us the emotional stakes are getting higher for them. And finally, our heroes get some help. A park ranger points them to a better path, one that bypassed that dangerous descent. That means it just went around the scary part. It was the perfect solution to their problem. Okay, so we've decoded the story, we've broken down all these different words, but what's the big takeaway from all this for you? What's the secret? Well, here it is. The ultimate secret to solving the homophone puzzle isn't about memorizing giant lists of words. It's all about training your brain to listen for the context. The other words, the situation, the tone, those are the clues that will always tell you what's really being said. So now, the power is in your hands. You know the secret. Context is everything. So my challenge to you is this. As you go about your day-to-day, listening to music, talking with friends, what homophones are you gonna spot? Happy hunting!